Good afternoon. This is session 3. Speakers online, please excuse us. We'll be starting 15 minutes late. Sorry for the delay. So just please wait. Finish the tea. தள்ளிட்டு ஐயோ 5 நிமிஷம்லாம் டைமே இல்லை. ஆன்லைனில் எல்லாம் நிற்கிறாங்க. ப்ளீஸ் 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 தள்ளிட்டு வாங்க. ஓகே.
Check, check, hello, check, check, hello, check. Hello, check, check, hello, check, hello. Podium off. Hello, check. Hello, check, check, நாலு. Hello, check. Hello, check. Check, check, hello. Hello. Hello, check. இது podium off. Hello, check, check, hello. Hello, check, check, hello, hello. Hello, check. Hello, check. Hello, check. Hello, check, check, hello. Hello, check, check, hello. Hello, check, check. hello, check, check, hello. Hello, check. Hello. First course. Gain. Hello, check, check, hello, 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 check, check, hello, 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 check. Hello, check, check, hello, 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 check, hello, hello.
Recording in progress.
Start. Good afternoon. We'll be starting session 3. Request all of you to please assemble in the hall. So this session 3 is on a role of science and technologies in bridging knowledge gaps and sustaining ecosystems. So we have 5 speakers in this session, and sorry to say Dr. Soumya Swaminathan is caught up in some other meeting. She's unable to join us. She's supposed to chair this session. So now I request Dr. Hariharan to coordinate the session. So I invite Dr. Hariharan, Executive Director, MSSRF, to coordinate the session. And the next speaker is the speaker of this session, Dr. C.N. Ravi Shankar, Vice Chancellor and Director, ICR, CIFE, Mumbai, Maharashtra. I request you, sir, to please come on to the dais. And we have Dr. K. Thangaraj, Director of Center for DNA Fingerprinting and Diagnostics at Hyderabad. He is joining us online. And Professor Kadamut Siddiq, he is from Western University of Australia, Perth. He is also joining us online. And Dr. B. Shadrak, Director, SEMCA, Commonwealth of Learning. He will be joining us online from Delhi. And last, I would be speaking. I'm from MSSRF. Now I hand over the session to Dr. Hariharan, and he would be coordinating the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prabhavati. And already we are getting delayed, and without wasting much time, this particular session, we are specifically looking at how the recent development in science and technologies is going to help us to address the knowledge gaps, and that will also be useful to sustain the ecosystems. Right from the morning, we are all listening that sustainable development is not going to be a linear model, and it's a complex system, and various gears are operating at different levels and so on, at various speeds and things like that, but still we need to achieve it, and science is a major driver. We firmly feel on that, and with this particular starting note, I invite the first speaker, Dr. Ravi Shankar, who is presently working as Director and Vice Chancellor of the ICAR, Central Institute of Fisheries Education, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. Earlier to this, he was the Director of ICAR, Central Institute of Fisheries Technologies, Cochin, during 2014 and 2021. He has over 35 years of experience in food science research, post-harvest fisheries technologies, food safety and all. Today morning also we listened to an eminent lecture, sir. With this brief introduction, may I request you can take around 7 to 10 minutes. Yeah.
No, it is the presentation. Here, put it on. Okay, good afternoon, good evening. First of all, it's really a privilege to be here, especially on this auspicious day. of birthday of our honorable, our mentor, the father of Green Revolution, Professor Swaminathan Sahab. And I am also proud to be associated with Indian Council of Agriculture Research, in which he was the secretary and DG. It's really a proud day for me also personally. And I would like to share with you, in 2014, I received the fellowship of Academy of Agriculture Sciences from Professor Swaminathan. So it's really a proud moment for me to see his birthday today. And thanks to the MSSRF for inviting me and the Central Institute of Fisheries Education for this very important occasion, coinciding with his birthday. And also to my friend Dr. Ramasubramaniam for inviting me today. So let me talk about some of the key challenges for sustainable fisheries. So before I go to the actual topic, we all know the importance of fisheries. When the country is heading towards the 5 trillion economy, I'm sure the role of fisheries is going to be very, very important, because if you see any sector, compared to any sector, the growth in fisheries is unparalleled. The growth is enormous, so that's what I'm telling. That's why so much of impetus is given on fisheries, and a new ministry was started very recently, so that the contribution of fisheries is going to be very vital for the country's growth and economy. And when we are talking of fisheries, when it is growing so tremendously, naturally, sustaining the fisheries sector, the sustainability, the conservation, all that becomes very, very paramount. So in that direction, let me share a few thoughts. So I don't have to tell you the definition of sustainability. When we talk of sustainability, basically what? We are looking at meeting the current demands, not compromising the future needs. That's what we have to see, and it is all the more important when I'm talking of sustainability in fisheries. So when I say fisheries sustainability, maintaining the quality, the diversity and availability of resources in sufficient quantities for the present and the future generations. And when we have been talking, hearing from the morning about the importance of the, food security, nutritional security. When we talk of nutritional security, fish being a very, very nutritious food commodity, that's going to play a major role. The morning also we were talking about the, the first food laureate was Professor Swaminathan, and even one Dr. Shakuntala recently, she was awarded with the food laureate for her work on in the fisheries, small-scale fisheries. And tomorrow we are going to be joined by Professor M.V. Gupta ji. He was also a food laureate and working specially in Myanmar and Bangladesh. And when I was in CAFT, we were working with World Fish. Morning, I was very happy to hear the DG of World Fish talking about the importance of fisheries. We were also working in the country on, the first 1,000 days of life. There, so much of importance of fish in the nutrition. So that's what I'm telling when I'm talking of sustainability, when fisheries is so important for addressing the food security and nutritional security, naturally sustaining these resources, conserving resources becomes very, very important. When you're talking the world fisheries, if you see, you can see the growth. Over the past, if you compare to the previous decades, you can see the growth. If you see the capture fisheries, it is almost stagnant, okay, both marine as well as inland capture. But you see the aquaculture, it is really tremendously progressing. Whatever now 70% is nearly from the aquaculture, what we are producing and also what we are exporting. Whereas the capture fisheries needs to be sustained. Maybe in the future slides I will talk to you. See, if you compare to the 1950s, you can see how much is the growth from 19 million to 179 million. That's really enormous growth in the fisheries sector. Then where we stand compared to the global production, India is really catching up very well. Of course, we are far behind China, but we are second in the fish production. And if you see the global production of 2020, nearly 50% is produced by only 7 top countries. So that you can see, and we are also positioned very, very, favorably. And when I'm talking of the sustainability, you see the decline. The fish stocks are declining. Maximum sustainable fish is nearly 57%, and underfished is 7%. But the overfished, you see, 36%, which is again a very, alarming situation. And when I'm talking of the decline in the stocks, definitely there is a rise in the unsustainability. So the percentage of stocks, if you see, compared to the 1970s, from 10%, so it is, becoming 35%, which is again a matter of concern. Then we have been talking about the SDGs, okay? What are the targets? We are looking at reducing the pollution, because aquatic pollution is becoming a major concern when we want to conserve and sustain our resources, right? And also protecting the coastal ecosystem, and also the acidification. These are all the concerns, okay? And again, we have been globally talking about the IUU fishing. Even the, if you're talking of G20, which is, India is going to be the, assuming the presidency next year coming up, in the previously it is used to be only about IUU fishing. But in the future, we will be talking about subsidies, we'll be talking about the stock, depletion, how to conserve the resources. All these are going to be very, very important in the coming years, especially for a country like India. With the exploding population, addressing the malnutrition, definitely we need to conserve so that fish will become an important commodity for addressing the malnutrition and undernourishment which is prevailing in the country. So these are all the matter of the concern. Then again, fisheries contributes very significantly, nearly 274 billion to the global GDP, and 3 billion people. Morning also, the Director General World Fish was talking about this. 3 billion people depending on that, and the global fish harvest could be higher, 40% higher. Suppose we put in place the sustainable management, okay? Definitely when there is a demand is more, we need to put up a sustainable management measure so that we can get additional 50 billion every year if the stocks are managed properly. So when I'm talking sustainability, has to be, the outcome has to be ecological, economic, and also social. So we need to integrate all these facets. Then only it becomes more meaningful when we are talking of sustainability and conservation. And talking to Indian, coming to the Indian fisheries, you can see the contribution of inland is becoming more, or the aquaculture is becoming more. The production both in the, of course now we need to concentrate more on mariculture, and our inland resources we are really not tapping much, okay? The near coastal, the stocks are over-depleted, overfished. We need to look into the huge potential of reservoirs, rivers. So much of inland fish production can be enhanced. So that's what I think we should be looking at. And let me just highlight few of the challenges in the Indian fisheries. One is the global, increasing the population. Naturally, the demand is also tremendously increasing. And decline in the fish catch, and the natural resources are really over-exploitation, especially on the coastal fisheries. And again, we are depending on shallow water and unrealized potential of floodplain, lakes, reservoir. I think we should be concentrating on these. And also we must go to the deep into the ocean. There are a lot of unconventional resources like myctophytes, which we are really not tapping. If you are talking of aquaculture, we need the feed. For the feed, main ingredient, the fish meal, as a protein supplement. Now, many other countries are already, exploiting the unconventional resources. I think India also should look into that. Another concern is water pollution, contamination, and again the poor yield optimization. A lot of problems in the harvest and post-harvest. We have been talking about the infrastructure improvement, cold chain, because fish is highly perishable. So we need to improve the infrastructure. We need to improve the cold chain facility so that the fish is available for everybody. Now it is only, if you see the fish consumption also, it is only concentrating along the coastal line. The global is around about 20 kilo per capita, whereas we are only talking about 6 to 8 kilo. So that needs to be improved so that the fish is made available. The quality fish and safe. So quality and safety are becoming, very, very important when we are talking of aquatic products. And the climate change, we have been hearing about the climate change impacts. And again, we don't have a proper database, okay? I think that needs to be strengthened. And lot of, weak linkages between the research, developmental agencies, the farming community. Since morning we have been talking about that participatory approach, bringing everybody, all the stakeholders to be brought into the system so that we have a robust fisheries management, or we can have a sustainable fisheries development in the country. And again, we are not really giving too much of importance to the environmental, economic, social, and gender issues. I know there is a special session, third day, talking about gender. So that's also, again, inadequacy of HRD. Whatever we are producing is not that much. We need to concentrate on more. Extinction, again, we are talking of a weak extinction mechanism. When I told you about the pollution, contaminated germplasm resources, I think we need to concentrate on that. Decline in the fish catch, wherever we are over-exploiting, I think we should be looking at unconventional resources, and we should have an economic, some states, again, I told you, the fisheries is a state subject, okay? That is what is the problem. I think every state should have their own management measures. Then only it will be successful. That is another area. Again, Database, I told you about that. We need to strengthen the database. And again, we have very few species. If you compare to other countries, the number of species cultured, we need to increase the basket. We need to have more species into the culture system. Then only we can sustain or we can develop more. We are heavily dependent. Even if you see the export, we are only depending on one commodity, Venamai, shrimp. If there is a problem, then we are into the great problem into the country. I think we need to have more species into the domestic consumption as well as for the export basket. Again, I told you we need to strengthen the linkage between all the stakeholders in the system. And what are the way forward? Let me share some things. When I'm talking of the restriction of fishing efforts, I think we have overcapacity now. If you really see the number of boats which are too many for whatever the stock we have, we need to phase them out. Okay? We need to have more fuel efficient, and again we should reduce the number. For that, the fishing pressure should be reduced because our capture fisheries is not really improving. So that is one area. Again, we need to have closed fishing season. Of course, in the coastal, already the fishing ban is there. But still, we need to have more of marine protected areas. We need to improve the sanctuary so that the stock is replenished. The stocks are improved. Again, we should have, minimum legal size. There are a lot of issue about, the small juvenile catching. The juvenile fish is caught. So that is affecting the stock. So we need to regulate all these things. Only few states like Kerala and all have enacted. I think other states also should look into this. So there should be more, management measures. Again, harmful fishing practices should be banned. And we should be encouraging more of deep sea, because all our, vessels are very small. They are not equipped for going to the deep sea fishing. So I think that we need to look into. Again, catch quality. We should really look at, bringing a good quality fish. With whatever, nearly 25% of post-harvest loss a country like India cannot afford. 25% is too much. I think that's where we need to reduce. How to reduce? We need to improve the infrastructure, the cold chain facility. All that only we will be able to have. And also, whatever we call the rest raw material, the secondary raw material, huge biomolecules. There is so much of potential from that is called, wealth from the waste. I think we should be looking at that also. And morning in the previous session, we were talking about labeling, certification. I wanted to add one point. Somebody was asking about the, premium price for the, the fish, or whatever that. I wanted to tell you, in Kerala, there is one lake called Ashtamudi Lake. There is a MSc certification, that is Marine Stewardship Council. So the clam from Ashtamudi Lake is getting premium price because we have a certification. See, that is going to be the future. Now tomorrow, all our, whatever stocks we are there, if we get certification, eco-labeling and all that will definitely going to give you better prices for the fishermen. So that, now they are not able to meet ends. I think that's what we should be looking at. And again, there are a lot of trade restrictions, there are a lot of problem about contamination, use of antibiotics and so many problems. I think all these should be looked into. Again, co-management, we have been talking, okay. Fisheries management, responsibility given to the government and other stakeholders, where the fisheries management, where you are interlinking the government agencies, the fisheries stakeholders, the coastal stakeholders, the external agents like, NGOs who are working, and the scientists. Another 2-3 minutes, okay? I think this needs to be strengthened, okay? And we should, focus on ecosystem approach, where we can shift from the targeted species into the whole co-management system. And big data, okay? I think this is what I think we should be looking at more. Big data is very vital. Using, the new end IoT, all blockchain, all these technologies have to be embedded into the fishery system. And again, research-based solutions. All the research institutions, developmental agencies, everybody should work together. Based on the need, the institution should develop the problems and get back to the stakeholders. And again, trained manpower is another area of concern. We need to improve them, okay? And in the end, I would like to say that, the marine fisheries or inland fisheries need to be where we can have more, participatory approach, where people need to be involved. Everybody should be taken along. And the state and the central government with all other agencies should work together. Then only we will have a more robust, sustainable fisheries. These are all the things. And thank you very much. Again, highlighting the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture 2022. Once again, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. You have really touched upon the key points. Yeah, thank you very much. You were well in time. Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Kumaraswamy Tangaraj, who will be speaking on population genomics and public health in South Asia In this session, we wanted to make very many dimensions to be addressed. That's the reason first speaker is a fishery expert. The next one is going to speak about DNA fingerprinting, and he is from CCMB, Hyderabad. He is currently the director of Center for DNA Fingerprinting and Diagnostic at Hyderabad. Prior to that, he was a chief scientist and group leader at the CCMB, Hyderabad. His main research interests are origin of modern human, cardiovascular diseases, mitochondrial disorders, and so on. In fact, I don't want to stand before you and the speaker. With this brief introduction, I request you, Dr. Tangaraj, to address the gathering. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I also thank Dr. Prabhavati and Dr. Hariharan for inviting me to deliver a talk on this very special occasion. As already indicated by the chairperson, I'm going to give a talk on different aspects because most of you are agriculture scientists. I'm going to talk about human genetics because this is kind of interesting area of everybody's. So I don't disappoint all of you because it's somewhere closely connected with all of us. When we talk about population genomics, there's no other better country than India because we have huge amount of diversity in terms of language, in terms of social structure like caste, religious group, and many more. And even if you see the color, you see that the phenotype, some group looks like European, some group look like African, some like East Asian, and some are very unique to South Asia or India. So in that sense, it's very, very important to explore various aspects. So I'm going to cover two important aspects. One is how such a huge diversity arose, and was there any major contribution of Indian subcontinent in the early human migration, how the social structure, has a kind of implications on our health and so on. So very briefly, anyway, time is very, very limited, so I'll go very quickly. So we use genomics as a tool to understand all the issue which I mentioned. So we use different kind of genome. One is the mitochondrial genome because the mitochondrial DNA we all inherit from the mother. So we want to trace the maternal lineage. We use the mitochondrial genome. And if you want to trace the paternal lineage, there's a tiny chromosome, nuclear chromosome, we use to trace the paternal lineage. And if you wanted to understand both lineages, we use the autosomes, okay, because that we inherit equally from both the parents. We have been studying this for last 2.5 decades, and I'm going to highlight very significant findings. One of the major question is that we all know the human population or human race arose in Africa, and the major question is that how did they spread out of Africa, which route they have taken. There are many hypotheses. To understand that, we have used large number of population, including the tribes of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. There are 4 tribes which typically look like Africans, like Onge, Jarawas, Sentinelese, and Great Andamanis. So we have used DNA from all those populations, and we came to a conclusion that the Andamanis are the first modern human who migrated out of Africa, taking southern coastal route and reached Andaman and Nicobar Islands about 65,000 years back. So this is the very first genetic evidence. And also I want to highlight this is fitting with the theme of the session, coastal. So there was a coastal migration which brought people from Africa to India and further to Australia. After looking at that, so we also wanted to look at the nuclear genome, so where we selected population representing all the 4 major linguistic groups: Dravidians, Indo-European, Austroasiatic, Tibeto-Burman, and also the Andaman tribes. Using 1 million SNP, single nucleotide polymorphic markers, we have in fact reconstructed the Indian population history. So what we have found was that in India, as you see in the PCA plot, these are all Indian population. This is a European, African, and Chinese map sample. While they were clustering in a tight cluster, many individuals suggesting genetically they are more homogeneous, whereas Indians, every single population is very unique because of the practice of endogamy, so which I'll cover a bit later. Then what we propose in the prehistoric India, there were two founding populations. One is ancestral South Indian. They probably part of the early human migration. When the population migrated from Africa to Andaman Island, some groups stayed in southern part of India. It could be either Kerala or Tamil Nadu, whom we call as ancestral South Indian. There was another wave which probably taken people towards north. One group has gone to Europe and other group has come to northern part of India, whom we call as ancestral North Indians. Of course, there are several studies we have confirmed that there is some kind of genetic affinities between people living in the north and Europe, like skin color mutation, lactate persistent gene, the Y chromosome haplogroup R1A. So there are many issues which I'll not cover. So what I'm going to now tell you is that what this study brought is that in India, so every population is a mixture of both ancestral North Indian and ancestral South Indian. And we also refuted the Aryan invasion theory, which was there for some time, that people who are with the light skin color and pushed the dark skin color people Dravidian towards south. So then we said that there is nothing like that. And we also estimated that could be high frequency of recessive disease, which I will come bit later. Now what I'm going to tell you is that when this admixture took place between ancestral South Indian and ancestral North Indians, to understand that we have again took major study, taking population, large number of population from South and large number of population from North, and we came to a conclusion that because that there is large number of statistical analysis which brought this information. Initially, ancestral South Indian gave rise to many population groups. Ancestral South Indian also gave rise to many population groups. Independently, they're all unique. Then during the last 2,000 to 4,000 years, both ancestral South Indian and ancestral North Indians have admixed. Now you can see there's a mixture of genome which shows in the color in a simple way. Then after admixture, for the last 2,000 years, every single population started maintaining the endogamy. Endogamy means marrying within the group. So that's why every population unique, because in the last 2,000 years, there could be large number of genetic changes in every single population that's unique to that population, because they're not marrying outside to spread that mutation to the next population. So now what I'm going to tell you is that what is the impact of this endogamy? To understand that, we have now expanded the study not only within India, so we went beyond India, including all the South Asian countries. There are many reasons for that. So one of the reasons is that when we identified a mutation in a gene called myosin binding protein C3, which is very well spread in India, and 4% of the people carry the mutation, which leads to, there are three different kind of cardiomyopathies. Dilated cardiomyopathy, where the ventricle enlarges, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, where the heart muscle, including interventricular septum, become very thick. Other one is restrictive cardiomyopathy, where the heart muscle become very stiff. So all these conditions suddenly stop functioning. Therefore, there's a sudden cardiac arrest and the people die. If the mutation is in homozygous condition, individual die at very early age, less than 10 years. If the mutation is in a heterozygous condition, the individual live happily without any symptoms up to 40 or 45 years. Then beyond that, there will be sudden cardiac death. But that mutation is well spread within South Asian countries. And there are also many other examples. That one of the example is that if you look at entire South Asia, genome-wise, and there are about 50% of the genome actually has gone from India to other countries. Therefore, when we say India, so you can also cover that is applicable to entire South Asia. To understand that, we took large number of samples, 2,800 individuals from 275 endogamous group. As you see, these are all the place where we have sampled, and the color indicates about the linguistic groups. We again extended this with a large number of statistical tools, and in this study we brought again different dimension, saying that there's a large number of opportunity to map a population specific recessive disease mutations. So large number of opportunity for the young generation. So why we are saying that? This is called Ibd Score, and every population is represented by the line because there are 275 populations. And the length indicates that the Ibd score is very high. In a simple way, if you compare two individuals, they are really unrelated, then you will see, for example, 10 kb region, you will see a lot more variation. But if they say from same population, they are unrelated, but if you find there's no change, that means few generation back they are related. So they come from a common ancestor. So using those information, we predicted that at least 1/3 of the Indian population might be having a population specific recessive mutation, which might cause the disease. And if you look at there are two populations here. One is the Ashkenazi Jewish, other one is Finnish population. With this tiny Ibd score itself, this large number of disease, which I'll tell you in the next slide. But you can imagine that most of the population in India have several fold higher Ibd score. You can imagine that what would be the consequences of that. So these are the examples where you see that with Ashkenazi Jewish, large number of disease, and you can see large number of diseases are autosomal recessive, and these are all the genes. Recessive, if it is a dominant disease, the person carry a mutation, heterozygous condition, he or she will have the disease. If it is a recessive, the individual with heterozygous mutation will not show any disease, but because of the endogamy, the mutation would increase its frequency in the population. After a few generations, there's an opportunity, two individuals with the heterozygous mutation, they marry and give rise to individual with the homozygous mutation. Therefore, there's a disease. So that's highlighted here. For example, in this pedigree, the mutation is here, some recessive mutation. Because it's a recessive mutation, there's no problem at all. And after a few generations, you can see this mutation is going generation after generation in a heterozygous condition. Now they consider that they are unrelated, but actually they are related several generations back. But if they marry, there's a 1/4 of chance that they contribute this mutation. Therefore, there's a disease. So there are several examples. This is one example where we actually proven that hypothesis. This is disease called progressive Pseudo-Rheumatoid dysplasia. Parents are absolutely fine. There are 30 patients we have analyzed with the heterozygous mutation. But the children have this kind of bone abnormality. You can see wherever there's a joint, there's a swelling and very painful. And this caused by mutation WSP3 gene. To understand our hypothesis, whether they're all relative or not, when we sequence, there are 6 individuals carry the mutation in a homozygous condition. And when we screened the parents and found that the 5 out of 6 are actually coming from a common ancestor. The haplotype is same. There are several examples. In this slide, what you see here is there is a mutation in polymerase gamma gene. That's very, very essential for mitochondrial DNA replication. There's a single base mutation, wild type, and the parents are carrying the mutation in heterozygous condition, but unfortunately, they contributed the both mutant chromosome in 2 out of 3 the children, the homozygous mutation, have large number of problems, including encephalopathy, seizures, and stroke-like episode. And unfortunately, it leads to very, very early death. This single base mutation, and they can see there's a large number of abnormality in the brain MRI.
Sir, you can take 2 more minutes.
Yes, I'll finish.
Yeah.
This is another example where there's a down south, there's a population, and the disease is called junctional Hurwitz epidermolysis bullosa, and skin rashes and also congenital heart disease. We did the exome sequencing, identified LAMB mutation, 11 base pair deletion of the LAMB gene, which causes this kind of disease. Both the parents are heterozygous. You can see there are 8 such family we identified, and we want to screen. That's our next stage, to screen entire population. Therefore, we can give appropriate counseling. Based on our study, which I showed that high Ibd score, we identified some of the population. We also identified a population where there's a population-specific disease like hand-foot disease. These are all very short stature, bone abnormality. And here this is called as Udanam kidney disease in Andhra Pradesh coastal area. These people are, a lot of people are having the kidney disease. They're all undergoing dialysis. These are some of the examples where there's a population-specific disease. So we are looking at that now. There are a couple of examples which I wanted to highlight. Not only the genetic disease, even infectious disease has a genetic basis. So one of the example here is the malarial mutation, like sickle cell anemia's mutation is because of the evolutionary pressure. And that is very, very high among the ancestral tribal population. At what you see here, caste, nomadic tribe, ancestral tribal population, this mutation which gives the haplotype which gives the resistance against malaria. On the other hand, very recently we looked at large number of population, including Onge, they are all having a very high haplotype. That means which they are not exposed to any kind of disease, but they in fact will have very severe consequences if they are exposed. So there are many issues because of the limitation of times. I want to conclude by just showing this slide where the authors of this paper suggest that how important the evolutionary biology is. That they say that evolutionary biology is not just another topic vying for inclusion in the curriculum. Is essential for foundation for the biological understanding of health and disease. So because I work on both aspects, it's very, very easy for us to understand many issues. And I would like to thank all my colleagues and collaborators. Without their help, it would not have been possible to do all these studies. And the funding has come from CSIR, UKERI, PBT, DST, ICMR, and Medical Research Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for this important lecture. You highlighted the importance of human genetics and how they play. Even when we talk about food and nutrition security, if we are not addressing the issues created by the genes, then there will be serious problem. Thank you very much for this important lecture. Our next speaker is Professor Kadambod Siddiq. He is currently the director, the University of Western Australia, Perth, Australia. He will be speaking on the potentials of future smart food for mountain agriculture, achieving zero hunger, nutrition, climate resilient, economic and social benefits. Professor Siddiq has over 30 years of experience in agricultural research, teaching and management in both Australia and overseas. He has developed a national and international reputation in agricultural science, especially in the fields of crop physiology, production agronomy, farming systems, genetic resources, breeding, research in cereal, grain and pasture legumes and oilseed crops. So with this introduction, sir, may I request you to give the lecture. He has published more than 680 scientific papers and book chapters and books to his credit. Professor Siddiq, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
And can you see my slide?
Able to see your slide. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Hariharan. And first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Hariharan and Prabhavati for this kind invitation. And also, I would like to congratulate and best wishes to Professor Swaminathan, whom we all know over the years, and what an inspiration. First, I met him when I was a master's student at Indian Agriculture Research Institute, and then slowly at various occasions. But the most important memory is that I invited him to Perth the University of Western Australia, in 2007 and delivered a keynote address, but also a public lecture, including the Indian community came. But he also had a dinner with our place for a number of nights. And one night he said, oh, we would like to have some dosa. So we arranged some dosa. So wish him all the best, and it's an honor to be here. So within the 15 minutes, what I'm going to talk about is future smart food, how they fit in the mountain hill agricultural system, because the conference is about coastal and mountain agriculture. Now I cannot move my slide. Is it moving? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, it is moving.
Okay, so the outline of my talk is future smart food. Very briefly, how they fit in the mountain agriculture development, how can we harness the potential. So that's about the gap filling and conclusion. And this is where I'm coming from. Those who haven't been, this is my university with all that red roof tiles, a wonderful city away from all over the world, the western part of Australia. A great university, but we just were thrilled last week. We got the ranking. We are number 15 in the world in agriculture science and number 1 in Australia. Now, what is future smart food? So if you look at it globally, we heard from the previous speaker some of the issues genetically linked, but there are dietary linked as well. So if you look at, there are 7 sub-regions have high or very high standing prevalence. It's a pity that Dr. Soumya Swaminathan is not there, but she's an expert on this aspect. But you can see South Asia, then Sub-Saharan Africa, and Oceania has got some serious problem. So what is future smart food? It's sometimes Professor Swaminathan coined the term orphan crops, minor crops, promising and little used. I won't go into the detail, but 4 points. Point number 1, they're nutritionally dense. They are locally adapted to the local region, and hence they have got significant climate resilience. We heard from previous speakers about the importance of climate change and the fisheries system. And they are economically viable. But there are some serious issues, constraints, policy constraint. Policy has favored, green revolution has favored the rice, the wheat, and the maize. And so we neglected some of the other important crops. Technical constraints, as a result, technical know-how is limited. Market constraint, again, it just gone out of the village market, not getting into the mainstream market. Then institutional constraints, that's the capacity. Are we training some of our masters and PhD students in these crops, whether it is the genetics, whether it is the genomics, or the agricultural system? So we need to change the perception of these crops, unimportant, old-fashioned, and poor man's food. I saw you are distributing millet. I'll miss my millet. I'm sitting in Australia. Healthy diet, good for children, pregnant women, and the future. So that's what future smart food crop. So 2016, under the banner of the United Nations FAO regional office in Thailand, we convened a number of countries: Cambodia, Laos, PDR, Myanmar, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Vietnam, West Bengal, representing India. And then we started looking at the partnership, scoping studies, expert consultation, and then finally we produced a product, and then we are now moving into the enabling environment. Much of that is published, and that is available online, as well as if anyone interested, I can send a copy. But also recently we summarized that into an article in Nature Plants, basically saying that we must rediscover Asia's forgotten crops to fight chronic and hidden hunger. I know the foundation is doing excellent work in the case of millet in Wayanad. That's where I born in Kerala. So a wonderful work, and we are happy to collaborate in future. And also the neglecting of the pulses, so badly neglected. India is doing well, but not enough. So if you compare the investment in 13 pulse crops, it's about only $175 million. Multi-billion dollars invested in wheat, rice, and maize. And as a result, the development of pulses, so important in the agro ecosystem now with the fertilizer price going up. So some examples from Bhutan, for all those who have been, it's a major crop elsewhere. In Bhutan, it is a minor crop. Quinoa, although introduced from South America, lentil, and we all know the value of drumstick, moringa. Going to Lavo PDR, taro, fancy yam, significant tolerance to drought and waterlogging. Rice bean, again another important minor crop. Cowpea, again quite a minor crop in Lavo, but important, and sword bean. Now let us look at their role in the mountain agriculture. Before doing that, what are the main challenges? The mountain and the hills, fragility, low carrying capacity, and the exploitation of natural resources limited. Vulnerable human life support system, climate variation, huge landslides. I just was watching the news in Kerala hills where the monsoon is really acting very badly and eroding the land. Steep slope and harsh conditions challenge mobility and accessibility to infrastructure, for example, irrigation, trade, primary health care, education, social service, income generation opportunities, and suitable for the cultivation of limited crops. You must remember the mountains of the world supply majority of the products for the people like us, whether it is the water, the electricity, the medicinal plants, you name it. It's all coming from the mountain. But the mountain people are marginalized so badly because we, living in the plains, are getting all the benefit. Cultural gaps, lack of understanding, studies, marginalized communities. So what are the opportunities? Large size of the arable land globally still in the mountains and the hills. Agro-biodiversity is so rich there. How do we protect that? Diverse ecosystem. If you move from 1 kilometer, you will immediately find an ecosystem which is quite niche to that environment. Can we practice sustainable agriculture? We talk about organic agriculture and so on. So we need to look at the diversity of the mountain context, economic development, socio-cultural aspects, and ecosystem. High nutrition value. So for example, if you look at many of these crops I mentioned have micronutrients, high carotenoids and minerals, help address the deficiencies and enrich the diet. I won't go into the data, but if you just look at, for example, in the chickpea, compared with the polished rice, it has got 3 times more protein, 4 times dietary fiber, 4 times iron, folate. Professor Swaminathan used to talk about it, the importance of folate in pregnant women and young children. So these are some of the values which we could bring. There's a study done in Sri Lanka where iron-rich lentil was fed to the children 0 days, 60 days, and the percentage of improvement in number of traits, whether it is serum iron, binding of iron capacities reduced, that means more will be available, transferrin, seratum, and the serum ferritin. So what a wonderful way we can change the young children, their cognitive development through nutrition. Mountain adaptability, soil improvement, nitrogen fixers, water use efficiency. Many of these crops have got a very high water use efficiency and they fit perfectly well in the crop rotation. We need main crops like wheat, rice, and maize, but we must include these crops in the rotation. Mountain adaptability, again, this is the climate resilience. Mung bean, fast growing, fit into the rotation. Bale, which is a tree which produces the fruits, tolerance to low temperature, -7 degrees to 48 degrees. Greater yam, both wet and dry conditions. Rice bean, easily adapting to various weather conditions, and soil type, protecting the soil erosion. An example of the study done in Nepal, again a mountainous region, 300 local varieties of 8 neglected or future smart food crops, partnership with the local communities, mountain agro ecosystem, 60 superior and local adapted ones are identified and promoted to 16,000 farmers. The village concept, the same concept Professor Swaminathan has been advocating over the years. And then linking with the field schools, linking with the National Gene Bank of Nepal. And as a result, they were able to release amaranth, beans, finger millet, foxtail millet, poso millet to the community and the capacity building within the village, particularly empowerment of women and minimize of the production in mountain landscape. People thought these crops cannot generate income. They do contribute to sustainable livelihoods, provide a broad spectrum of crops, not just focusing on 2 or 3 crops, small scale investment, whether it is the pickles, murtaba, jelly, wine, many things can be produced from these crops. This is an example, quinoa, International Year of Quinoa in 2013. The Peru, the Andean regions, an important crop, and now it's a world crop. So increased demand for quinoa, increased informal local trade, more money, better living condition, better education, and better public hygiene. It's a cycle continues. Again, the traditional food system and food crop for diversity, indigenous food and strategies, a major source of nutrition. That is the underpinning thing. So there's a lot of stuff available. I won't go into the statistics of the wild species available, how much we have been utilizing so far. Another example from Bhutan, where we looked at 108 edible wild plants, and then 20 edible wild plants belonging to Petridophyta species, and 15 species were identified. But if you look at globally, oil palm, soybean, kiwi fruit, quinoa, they were all wild type of plants, domesticated, and then contribute to the food security, nutrition, dietary, and culinary diversification, health, and income generation. Now, coming to the conclusion of my talk, if you look at the mountain agriculture, forestry will still remain. It's important to protect that forest. But those people living in the mountain areas need a livelihood. Fisheries, we just heard about the first speaker, the crops and staples, and that's where the future smart food will fit in. For example, the organic agriculture practice in some of those areas fits in very well. So what we need to look at is that more national and local policy attention, engage all stakeholders, tools and brands we need to develop. We heard about the Ashtamudi Kyle, the clams, the first speaker has been talking, where geographical indicators and so on. Awareness of raising the nutrition of the mountain, more studies on how to integrate the future smart food to mountain farming system, more studies to identify various agroecological zones. And we need a holistic approach. I won't go into the detail, but the genetic diversity, selection, cultivation, harvest, value addition, marketing, final use, and then improved nutrition, income, and other livelihood, that is the impact. This is what essentially Professor Swaminathan has been preaching for a number of years and decades. But if you look at the outcome, self-esteem, empowerment of the communities, particularly the women. Outcome, another outcome, again, Professor Swaminathan has been conservation of the genetic diversity and the gene pool. Outcome, self-reliance of the value chain actors and competitiveness in the marketplace. And my conclusion, again, we published this book. If anyone is interested, we can send it to you. The last slide is mountain agriculture is an important and it faces multifaceted challenges given its fragility, inaccessibility, and marginality. It's being exacerbated by the climate change, melting of the snow, or fires, forest fires, and so on. The mountain possesses diverse contexts of opportunities, productive use of fragile slopes, marginal lands for sustainable agriculture, diversified farming system, and niche-focused developments. So the future smart food provide potential to develop mountain agriculture for mountain future smart nutrition and better livelihoods. So we need to look at the sustainable value chain development of these crops and building equitable high land and low land economic links. Because as I mentioned earlier, the mountain people are isolated. They produce most of our products, timber, water, hydroelectrics, honey, medicinal plants, gene diversity, you name it, all that come from the mountain for the lowland people. So we need to look at the equity there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. You have touched upon the key areas where we have to focus for our future research, and certainly we look forward for your publications. You showed some of your recent publications. It will be wonderful if you share it with us so that we will also get benefit. And
we'll do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much again.
Yes. And the next speaker is Dr. B. Sadrak, Director, CEMCA, Commonwealth of Learning, Canada. And before I invite, I wish to give a brief introduction to Professor Sadrak. In fact, His name is not new to MSSRF. He's one of our collaborators for a long time. Until recently, he served the Commonwealth of Learning Canada as Skills Advisor, where he started a new program initiative, Skills for Work, to impart employable and job-ready skills among the people of Commonwealth in collaboration with national governments and local organizations. In his career since in 1986, he has managed ICT 4D and skill development programs in over 40 nations around the world, working for organizations such as International Development Research Center Canada, One World International UK. The list is very huge, so I cut short. He earned his PhD in Information Science as a faculty student from Loughborough University, UK. So Dr. Sadrak is a long associate of MSSRF and a valued partner. And to you, Dr. Sadrak.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hariharan. Thank you, Dr. Prabhavati. And my thanks to Dr. Madhura Swaminathan and all the staff members of MSSRF with whom I've associated for a long time, as mentioned by Dr. Hariharan. And, today I'm thankful that on the birthday, 97th year has been completed in Professor Swaminathan's life. We wish him all the very best and very healthy life for many, many years to go, so that his wisdom can be made available to many, many more people. And I'm one of those amongst the millions. So today, as the topic was suggested to me, what could be the knowledge ecosystem that would enable us to sustain hilly and coastal ecosystems? So I put down some agenda points, and I would like to speak to those points in the light of what's happening globally, but root my discussion at a very local level, at a very in a very local context. As we all know that mountains and hills are, as with the entire earth and the universe, is God's creation and fundamental to human life. The mountain and coastal ecosystems are, although complex processes, maintained by a community of microorganisms and different species and the interactions between them. After all, those species only produce organic matter, bind CO2, produce oxygen, and are fundamental to food security. So that's why we see these two ecosystems particularly fundamental to life. But these are all very fragile, as we all know. As vast and majestic this could look like, but due to climate change and array of human activities, we see that these systems are increasingly becoming disruptive, sometimes disturbing, and also dangerous. Mountains are second only to coastal areas for tourism, so there is a tendency to see economic benefits, but any changes to the ecosystem result in actually natural calamities. When it comes to mountains, although it had some importance since the days of the Rio Summit, but the International Year of Sustainable Mountain Development 2 decades ago, when it was announced, it became a developmental priority, as we know. The 5 pillars to consider within the sustainable mountain development are environment, water and biodiversity, culture and gender, research around cultural and gender, the rich cultural heritage, which we heard about in the second session, but also threatened by globalization and tourism. And we see different roles for women and men, where men emigrate and women manage resources. So this is another context which we need to be aware of when it comes to mountains. Risks caused by travel, transport, infrastructure development, and climate change. You have the economics. Interestingly, although it's a subsistence living-based economy, there are uncertainties there is invaluable stewardship because they are the ones, the people there are the stewards of the mountain resources. So it is important for us to minimize the competitive disadvantage that they have. And finally, when it comes to policy and regulations, although not very many countries have actually looked at the need for human-centered policy and legislations to protect mountain and mountainous people, we see that there is a need. On the other hand, when it comes to the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture that has been declared, we see the 7 pillars, what they call the environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, social sustainability, governance and people's participation, gender equality and equity, food security and nutrition, and resilience are taken note of. And there is a global program around both mountains and artisanal fisheries and aquaculture for creating awareness, science policy interface, stakeholder empowerment, and partnerships. With this background, if we were to look at knowledge systems for both the hill ecosystem and mountainous and coastal ecosystem, what are we talking about? We are only talking about basically extending or querying the existing knowledge base. We are not actually talking about anything new. But what are these existing knowledge base? These are of people and the surroundings and the environment, the species, the flora and fauna, and the living and non-living organisms. So this is one major component of the knowledge base. And as stated earlier, the cultural and structures and practices are another component of the knowledge base, because these govern as to how we conduct our lives and businesses and so on. But when it comes to the knowledge base at a very local level, we are also taking cognizance of the current practices of how people gather knowledge, process, and use, so that one could look at what is codified and what is not codified. Quite often, a lot of uncodified knowledge was passed on, but there is an opportunity with the technologies at play to codify knowledge and make available many of these for the future generations to benefit. Because technologies not only enable us to accelerate the process of knowledge, but transfer it, saves time, and also enables others to interact. But when it comes to knowledge base at a local level, there are 3 conditions that prevail: the truth condition, data and facts; the belief condition, verification and analysis by the local people; and the justification condition, which is the interpretation and application of knowledge. So these are all very important for us to take note of. But having said that, when it comes to knowledge, managing a knowledge ecosystem for hill and coastal ecosystems, we need to take cognizance of this whole notion of partnerships. We have recognized, particularly from the Swaminathan Research Foundation's efforts, that participatory approaches to problem solving is to be enshrined at every level. It's extremely important to begin with participatory approach right from the design of any knowledge base or knowledge systems we are talking about. And the previous speakers in the last 2 sessions mentioned about the lack of databases and lack of knowledge systems, in the aid of people. So there needs to be a symbiotic relationship between science and public policy for solving problems, particularly governed by societies. Not this system should not be governed by the societies that govern, but the societies that are governed should lead the partnership. So dialogue, as many UN organizations profess, dialogue and consensus are key. But let me talk about a couple of models that MSSRF itself has come up with. And their knowledge model, or the communication model, is around 4 tenets: land to land, land to lab, lab to land, and lab to lab. It's a powerful model where they recognize that people-to-people communication is extremely important. And in the previous session, there was a question raised whether the heritage databases are shared amongst the different communities that own it. So there is a need for, so MS Swaminathan Research Foundation initiated the Open Knowledge Network project, which enabled communities from one end to communicate with another end. And those days, 20 years ago, using world space technology and simplex communication devices and so on. And they were able to do this and demonstrate. But, beyond the lab communication model, they've also come to recognize the need for every village to be recognized as a knowledge center, which is a program that Professor Swaminathan engineered right soon after he started the foundation. And the very first dialogue was reaching the unreached at the Swaminathan Foundation after it was founded way back, in the early 90s. And that resulted in actually a national program that was designed as Mission 2007, which recognized the need for a knowledge center manned, staffed by a woman or a man, they're becoming the knowledge systems managers, managing local databases, capabilities to maintain information and data on people, planet, cultural beliefs, the changing context, access to scientific and verified knowledge, interpret those and make this available to the local public and for action-oriented benefits of the people at large. So this is the model that was initiated. And today, although we have 350,000 common service centers in India, but the Swaminathan model needs to be actually looked into seriously, and we need to really profess that model. We also have the virtual academicians model, which was promoted by the Swaminathan Foundation, which is basically identifying, recognizing, and rewarding local people as the ones managing knowledge for the benefit of the local communities. And here is where Professor Swaminathan makes a huge difference by calling people as the main stakeholders, not as beneficiaries. Many people mistakenly call people as beneficiaries, and this is a kind of a top-down approach, but Professor Swaminathan always mentions them as the main stakeholders, as the ones who lead the process. So I don't want to go in detail into those things that the Swaminathan Foundation did, like the community radio programs, partnership with All India Radio, the release of Namma Seidi, a newspaper produced by the local people. There may be a session on Fisher Friend mobile application in the program. But I want to quickly touch upon the technology that needs to be at the hands of people and how today the artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics are becoming mainstay from a journey that we treaded from very traditional and technologies to the modern situation today. We have a very good roadmap that the WF World Economic Forum has come up with, where it looks at AI, artificial intelligence for climate change, biodiversity and conservation, healthy oceans, water security, clean air, weather and disaster resilience efforts. So there are a number of programs that are out there at play. And it is important for actors like MSSRF to enable their communities and community-led artificial intelligence-based knowledge management systems in the future. And that's where I think we are going to make a huge difference to the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sadrak, for highlighting many of our key programs, and with collaborations with your organization, we will be in a position to really reach out to many more and make the strides. Thank you very much for this important message. Now we have the last speaker, Dr. V.R. Prabhavati. In fact, it's my pleasure to introduce my own colleague. She is currently serving as the Director Biotechnology Program at the Foundation. Her research focus is in the area of rhizosphere microbial diversity. It's very, the third term looks very difficult, but basically looking at the microbial diversity at the root zone of the plants. And she is a recognized PhD supervisor of the University of Madras. 6 students have already completed a doctoral degree under her guidance, published more than 35 peer-reviewed research articles in national and international journals, 20 book chapters, and has delivered invited lectures in national and international conferences. More than that, she has gathered a large collection of microbials from the mangrove soils, nearly 30,000 different isolates she has, and these things are going to be the future organisms which are going to help us to improve our productivity. With this brief introduction, I request Dr. Prabhavati to give the lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Hariharan, for this nice introduction. And also thank you for this opportunity. So my talk would be on beneficial microbes for managing soil health as well as crop improvement in the smallholder agro-ecosystems of the hilly region. I would be sharing some of our MSSRF experience where we were able to demonstrate the lab-to-land technologies in collaboration with our field sites, field staffs who are very supportive in implementing these experiments in the fields. So my presentation, I have just designed it like this. I would be presenting 3 case studies, one in Koli Hills and the other one in Orissa and also in Wayanad. So in Koli Hills, we had done a lot of work in promoting millet cultivation by the use of these microbials, and also in Orissa, in 3 aspirational districts, Koraput, Rayagada and Malkangiri. And in Kerala, we have promoted the use of these bioinoculants in the aspirational districts of Wayanad. So as the previous speakers have already set a stage about the challenges that the mountain ecosystems face. For example, low yields and low income because the access to inputs is very difficult. And also mostly you see the adoption of traditional varieties being cultivated in this region, and also by adopting traditional cultivation methods. Adding to this is the problem of water scarcity and also yield losses due to pest and disease, as these farmers do not invest much on the inputs. And also micronutrient deficiency, especially in soils where spices are cultivated, has been recorded. Adding on all to this is the uncontrolled runoff and also soil erosion, which leads to nutrient depletion in the soils of these regions. So just before giving the sharing my results, I would just like to give a brief about how the process of this is being adopted. It starts from the isolation of the microorganisms, how we screen it in the laboratory and establish they are very good for as plant growth promoters as well as biocontrol agents, and we identify them to which group they belong, and then screen it with the seeds or whichever specific crop. Here we show that it is screened with millets, and to the right side you can see the control versus the treated, where we have shown that the seeds which are treated with these microbials enhance the root promotion as well as the shoot promotion. And this has to be established as demonstration trials for nearly 3 to 4 seasons. And then the awareness has to be created among farmers for adoption, without which we cannot promote these technologies among the farmers. And finally, the adoption by training and awareness program has to be created for successful adoption of the technologies to the farmer. So this really takes at least 4 to 5 years for us to establish a product or to take to transfer these technologies from the lab to land. So just to show about the case study 1, where we tested biofertilization and bioirrigation in the Koli Hills by almost for 3 to 4 seasons in multi-location trials. We had more than 20 different treatments to establish how these bioinoculants work, and used different pulses also to test pigeon pea, lab, etc., where we could really establish these results show that the use of these bioinoculants in an integrated manner with 50% of chemical fertilizers really yielded on par with 100% of recommended dose of chemical fertilizers. This gives an indication that we can really cut down on the chemical fertilizer use at least by 50% in sites like Koli Hills and also in other mountain regions where you find by default they are more organic in nature. So this we tested more in monocrops as well as in intercropping systems, and the second graph really shows that in successive years we could find or we could establish that the results were very promising and these technologies can be adopted in these regions. So also we looked into the soil nutrient status, the availability of the phosphate and also the organic matter to the crop, and we could establish that the application of AMF as well as PGPR had a significant impact on enhancing the nutrient status of the soil. And also the other question arises, if you keep putting on these microbials, what will happen to the already existing microbials in the soil? This also an extensive study was done, and we could see though the OTUs increased, there was not much shift in the microbial population, showing that these inoculations does not impact or it in fact enhances the microbial content of the soil. And also this is another solution for reducing the greenhouse gas emissions like nitrous oxide or carbon dioxide by cutting down on the chemical fertilizer application. As I said, these technologies, if it has to be translated to the farmers for adoption, you have to conduct on-farm trials where again by bringing in or with the acceptance of the farmers, we were able to conduct OFTs and show that the application of these microbials, for example, the T4 treatment, where we could see that these microbials when applied even in the farmer's field, in the farmer's practice, could really enhance the crop yield. So the second case study is focusing on the aspirational district of promoting these bio inputs in the aspirational district of Orissa. This again promoting the use in the millet cultivation in either monocropping as well as in intercropping systems. Though they have established very good methods of cultivating as line transplantation as well as system of millet intensification, we had taken up these studies to test how these bioinoculants perform in these system of cultivation, and nearly 249 demonstration trials were taken up, and I really appreciate the efforts of the team, Orissa team, who could demonstrate these trials in the fields, and by showing how these bio inputs when extended in these large acres had really impacted the yield, and increase in the yield was seen in this case. For example, the blue bars you can see, whether it is Arjun or KMR varieties, when these bioinoculants were applied and also in an integrated nutrient management, the yield was extremely high or significantly high compared to the farmer's practice, which is shown as a pink bars. So farmers, this picture shows how farmers were readily accepting this. Just to give a brief about two farmers, I have just demonstrated how they readily accepted the use of these bioinoculants in their field. So the third case study is about the promotion of these bioinoculants for spices cultivation. The major problem that spices in Wayanad face is already the traditional varieties which are promoted are very low yielding. So this study actually focused on promoting high-yielding varieties in partnership with IASSR, and also you can see the biocapsules. These microbials have been developed as biocapsule, so it is recommended as one capsule for 1 acre of land, and also the promotion of micronutrient was taken up. So this just gives the data about what are the different varieties of pepper was being promoted among these tribal farmers, and also the biocapsules which have been promoted with them. And this study shows that comparatively with the traditional farming practices and the traditional varieties that were used, the yield was significantly high. So I would place my sincere thanks to all the members who have contributed to this study. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Prabhavati, for finishing in time. it's a very nice thing. Now we listen to diverse topics as well as they touched upon the key elements, how we can really make the things happen. With these few words, I open the session for discussion for both online and offline. First, we will take the questions online. In case if you have any questions, kindly raise to the speakers. You identify yourself and direct the question to a specific speaker. Is there any question in the chat box? Guru, can you please show the online panel so that we can see how many people are there and
Yeah, so there are no questions in the chat box. So if there's any audience,
Yes.
there are any audience questions.
Audience question here,
Yeah.
offline audience, you can now raise the question.
Sir, so Ravi Shankar sir mentioned about inland aquaculture system. So for initially it is okay. For long-term sustainability, what will be the strategy? Because water scarcity inland, now we are everywhere facing the, for agriculture itself, we are not much adequate amount of water is not available. And second thing about the quality of fish, means you are told cold storage system, that is a really, so coastal, that's a traditional food, long years they are consuming. But that comes to inland, the transportation, the cold chain, and the formamide issues with the storing other things. So how that has been, maybe technology is needed, or as you mentioned about the cold chain transport system, needed. So can you enlighten on that? Thank you.
Yeah. As far as the, nowadays there are a lot of new systems like biofloc, RAS systems are coming up, where we are using less water and the production is very high. Okay, the biofloc system. Yeah, and also the research, recirculatory aquaculture systems, and even IMTA. There are so many new technologies coming up where in a small area we can have more production. Okay, and as far as in the inland fisheries, what we were thinking is, okay, unlike a coastal system, in the inland areas, definitely they're all scattered, even reservoirs and all are very far. So having a cold chain may be difficult. But what we thought is, we can establish primary pre-processing centers at the production sites, okay? A huge reservoir or, a group of reservoirs where we can have a small pre-processing center. So that initially some pre-processing is done, maybe it is immediately, processed and converted into fillet or steaks, and some value addition is done. And it can be packed properly using some appropriate processing technology. Okay, maybe chilled, frozen, even ready to serve, whether it is canned or some of the technologies, traditional technologies can be done. Even hygienic, traditional practice like curing, drying, they all can be, even smoking. Some of the, when we are talking of hilly region, if you go to the northeast and all that, people like cured fish, the dried, smoked fish. Presently, the traditional knowledge, whatever traditional technologies are really not, hygienic production is not there. So maybe we can have some scientific intervention to improve the sanitation, hygiene, and improve some basic packaging and preserving the local traditional technologies by improving the keeping quality of the fish by simple, processing and packaging interventions. So what we advocate is establishing more pre-processing centers at the production site so that they can be kept longer. And also introduce some of the basic, they don't have even a small, insulated ice boxes. Okay, you don't need a high-end technology. Small insulated box itself is enough. And once you pre-process, remove the head, the entrails and all that, automatically the bacterial, spoilage reduces. So it can be kept for longer. And simple interventions like, chilling, packing under vacuum, you don't need any, now even vacuum packing, you don't need a machine. You have a small sachet of oxygen scavenger. You can see in some of the sweets, you have that scavengers now, oxygen scavengers in Haldiram sweets and all that. A sachet is enough in a laminated pouch after immediately dressing it. So by reducing the oxygen itself, you can double the shelf life. So some of the small interventions can be introduced at the, the inland production centers. Okay.
Sir, thank you very much.
Yeah, Professor Jayaraman.
Just two observations. One observation, one comment, and that is with regard to the climate aspect of it. So with the question that was just asked about shortage of water, in fact, the one thing all models predict for the South Asian region, for the Indian subcontinent, is that total rainfall will increase. That's the one robust result. What will, however, change is the distribution. There will be more extremes, more concentration of precipitation in a fewer number of days. So pond storage is the most obvious form of retaining this water in some form without losing it. So I think we should be, it is true that we would like to minimize the use of water as input, but we need not assume that we will have to do it because inevitably somehow climate change means less water. So that's one observation. The other observation, or rather a query I had to Dr. Kadambut Siddiq, he referred to future smart foods or future safe foods, whichever it is. And he referred to local varieties being more climate resilient. Now, I don't think that follows. I think they may be optimal for resource use, but the whole point about climate change is that the local climate is going to change. So what is adapted to the region over a long period of time will cease to adapt. So I think we should be a little careful here. So what is adapted to a dry region may be now useful for regions which are witnessing progressive aridification. But the fact that it is a local variety does not guarantee climate resilience for the future. Just a simple point. Thank you.
Your mic is
excellent point. I think what I meant is that the Green Revolution, let's take as in India or in China, we have just lost homogeneity, heterogeneity. So if you look at 60 years ago, if you did a satellite map of the globe, we will see significant diversity on the landscape. Now, if you look at that dominated by single variety, hybrid variety of corn, or single variety of wheat, etc., these are going to be less resilient and adapted to the climate change, whether it is increasing rainfall or declining rainfall, heat stress. For example, take in India, last harvest, Rabi season, how much effect in the Indo-Gangetic plain by couple of events of more than 34, 38 degrees Celsius temperature for 1 or 2 hours during the antithesis of wheat. If we had other crops in the system, it would not have, number one. Number two is that the locally adapted gene pool, these are what we call farmers' land races. We did an extensive study in 3 districts of Kerala, Wayanad, then we looked at the Kozhikode district and another district. We went and studied why the farmers are not growing the traditional varieties, or why some of them are growing. So it came out, a book has been published on that in Springer and a number of papers. It's very clear that when they had flash floods or drought, the local varieties stood up compared with the modern high-yielding variety of rice. Of course, their yield is probably 1 ton per hectare, whereas the other one would have given 2 tons or 2.5 tons per hectare. But the risk associated is significant. But some of the local varieties, these are traditional varieties, they are nutritionally dense, and there's quite a lot of market coming now in Kerala, where these, I can't give the name Jeeragashala, and many other names are there. those varieties can be packaged, and people are saying that they do withstand some of the vagaries, the sudden episodes of change. So in a gene pool, there is variability available. We as the breeders, we always go to the wild relatives and local land races to bring the adaptation to drought, heat, or waterlogging. Take, for example, taro. Taro is a plant which can tolerate waterlogging significantly. That's why in West Bengal and Odisha and parts of Kerala, in the rice system, it comes. So these things have gone. So that's what I meant. And your point is valid that, but the modern varieties are so homogeneous, they are just funneled and they don't have the traits required for the so-called adaptation. So that's what I meant. Thank you.
You still wanted to have clarification? In fact, he's raising the hand.
Oh, sure, I'm happy,
Yeah, yeah.
but...
But make it very short and we have to give...
I think I want to distinct the fact that the introduction of new varieties under current conditions in a region, then farmers find that they are not useful or that they are not resilient. And obviously, they stay with the varieties that they are used to. That is what your study shows. And I have no disagreement on introducing varieties that are not adaptable to the situation under present circumstances. But my point was different. And the fact that homogeneity or the lack of homogeneity, whether it adds to climate resilience, is a different question. See, you can, as I already pointed out when I made the first intervention, you may take varieties which withstand drought from one part of the country and use it in other parts of the country where there is progressive aridification. To say that is one thing. But obviously when there are the economics of crop production, etc., to be considered, then there is a limit to which we can have diversity. So there is a balance between diversity and the requirement of homogeneity as a consequence of farming as an economic activity. And I think we must keep that balance. So I think my point remains that locality or current adaptability is no guarantee of climate resilience, and we need to look at it more carefully.
Yeah, I fully agree. The balance is required. So I'm not saying that one particular species. I'm saying the diversity of the crop diversity. So, for example, let's take the flash flood system in southern part of India, Kerala. The Pokali cultivation of rice. The Pokali has been able to withstand flood and so on. The Pokali has been replaced by the other varieties. I won't tell the names, and there has been huge problem. So what we need to look at is that not about a specific variety, a variety of crop species need to be brought into the landscape and fit into the mainstream production system. I'm not against rice, wheat or maize. I'm not against the hybrids. I'm not against GMO. So that's the concept I've been trying to say. Of course, not all traditional varieties will withstand the future climate change. The future climate change we can predict, but we need to start looking at that very fast. Short type of bananas, for example, the wind comes, the banana just breaks. Anyway, I'll stop that there. Yeah. I think no disagreement there. It's a balance required. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Hussain, you wanted to raise a question? Let him.
Good evening to all. My question to Professor Ravi Shankar. You talked about captive fishery, marine fisheries, as well as you talked about the quality fish, catch quality. So when a fisherman goes to the deep sea for catching, they are capturing the adult fishes as well as the juvenile fishes. Is there any technology or technique that only the quality catch can be obtained where juvenile fishes will not come to the ocean, and so that the losses can be minimized? Thank you.
See, already I'm talking from the CAFT point of view, Central Institute of Fisheries Technology. We have already developed many technologies where we can exclude the juveniles. They are called bycatch reduction devices. Okay, when the fish enters the net, by modifying the mesh size. Okay, so the cod end, what happens normally, generally, what happens? It is a diamond mesh. Okay, the mesh is actually like a diamond shape. What happens when it is pulled in the water because of the drag? The diamond mesh closes. So whatever enters cannot escape. Okay. Now we have introduced a square mesh at the cod end, so that the square end, whatever you pull, it will not close. It will remain open. And in the beginning of the net, you have to have a bigger mesh. So what we should do is, the mesh size should be minimum 35-40 mm. But people are using 10 mm, 20 mm. So what happens? Any small fish going there, it gets stuck. So now the KMFR, whatever the Marine Fisheries Regulation Act of some of the states, they are mentioning what should be the mesh size at the cod end. And they are also introducing, mandatorily they should give square mesh. So what happens? When the fish comes, the small one will automatically escape. And also, we also have some of the things like excluding devices. You have a two, the cod end is actually separated into two. Only the bigger size will come and the small one will automatically escape. Similarly, we can even exclude anything you want. And there are, the nets which are specific to species. All the technologies are available, but they are not being implemented, I'll tell you. Why? Because the fishermen always have an apprehension that he will not get enough catch, where some of the good fishes also will escape, right? But by introducing this regulation, he will get only a bigger size quality fish. But what happens is, because he has an apprehension, he is using the same traditional net. So that's why the government has to put an act that if Kerala is already enacted. Anybody bringing a juvenile, the boat is confiscated. Okay? But what he does, the juvenile, whatever is caught, it is taken to Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, because there is no regulation in the neighboring states. So that's why I'm telling it is a state subject. Every state has to follow uniformity, so that you, again, the person who is introducing a square mesh also is not getting any benefit, additional benefit. So what we have been telling, incentivizing somebody who is putting a conservation measure and penalizing somebody who is not. So probably that's how we should be looking at it. Anyway, now the government, many of the states are looking in this direction. So the technologies are available. Okay? Yeah.
Ram Subramaniam and Ravi Shankar. Ram Subramaniam is waiting for a long time.
Yeah. I follow Ram Subramaniam always. Yeah. This is for Dr. Ravi Shankar. Actually, very good presentation. Only thing is I have a small clarification. What are the pros and cons of sea ranching as well as AFDs?
Again, I think definitely, having the artificial reef and ranching program and all, definitely it is going to be benefited. But the problem is the coastal pollution and all is having a huge impact on those things. Unless you control the coastal pollution, whatever ranching program you are doing, you're not able to be successful. Again, having a regulation on that, maintaining that, there are issues about illegal, people going and fishing there. So these are all the things. Again, it is a state subject. Unless you have a coastal, monitoring, regulation, and proper monitoring. And again, the state government has to have a rule, and it has to be implemented. Many states have rules for all this. So definitely these parks and the sanctuaries and all are going to be useful, especially in maintaining especially the marine stocks.
Yeah, I'm Ravi Shankar. This is about the key challenges to sustainable fisheries and the way forward. It's like not only challenges, but it is the issues and facilities. For example, as Professor always says, local to global. The issues are at local level which are not resolved. And that is why there is no rapport between the officials and the local communities. For example, if we say most of the fishing villages do not have even basic facility of a jetty where they can land and then, sustainably use the fishes they have already harvested. Next thing is we have not documented properly the best practice of post-harvest fisheries. For example, a small technique of UNDP small grants project where with say 2.5 lakh Indian currency, a poly house can be made which can be used for solar drying. So the women go and fish. By 10 o'clock, they can't sell the fish. They bring back the fish and they can have some cement slabs and that and use these poly houses to dry the fish. So it is more a value addition. It's a small technique, but it gives a lot of relief to the income generation as well as sustainable harvesting. They don't catch more. And there are some value additions they need to do which are not done. And issues are for constructing small jetties. They say many projects do not graduate into programs and they don't contribute to policies. This is an issue we face because there is limited, when we use lack of interdepartmental collaboration, departments are getting angry. So nowadays we are using the word limited interdepartmental collaboration. So for fisheries, sustainable fisheries, we need to have collaboration between forest department, fisheries department, rural department, and then Panchayat Raj department. And if we go from, from national level beyond boundaries to the international level, there are issues of over harvesting by other countries. Like, I say, horseshoe-shaped Bay of Bengal from Maldives to Sri Lanka and all the states in India, then Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, and Malaysia. And we need to look at, we have a very good, I also should say the institutional mechanism. We have a very good institutional mechanism called Bob LME. You know that, Bay of Bengal, large marine intergovernmental body. There are a lot of issues between the fishermen from different countries. It has to be resolved. So these are the issues from local level to, regional level that needs to be solved so that we will have, sustainable and also practical knowledge, traditional knowledge of fishermen community where the fishes are available. Now INCAIS and our foundation, we are together telling them where the fishes are available. But in Godavari area, there are very old men. When they go in a small canoe, they'll use a small bamboo pole and they can listen to the sound and then say, there you have the fish aggregation. So these are the best practices we have and we have been doing. Of course, Ram Subramaniam and we have been doing, but there needs to be more concerted effort. Otherwise, for the past 20 years, we have been talking like that. So we need to kind of look at the issue from more collaborative way and resolving way rather than always talking about. And also we have the practice of always talking about problems. We have a lot of solutions and we have a lot of learnings we have done. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. But okay, I'm talking from the research, R&D point of view. We have the technologies that has to be, adopted by the states and facilitated by the, union government. So somewhere I do agree, introducing a poly house for drying and all that we have also been doing in Pumbuhar and all the other places it was done. And even Pondicherry through BOBP, some programs CAFT was involved. And I told you in the World Fish Program, we have already done many of these interventions in Odisha now. Now this year we have taken up another 4 states. So slowly we are doing, it's hardly costing, a few thousands only, especially the polyhouse dryer, tent dryer we call. It's not even solar dryers. Yeah. Anyway, well, whatever you said are the issues definitely.
I do agree, but what I would like to tell is the pace with which it is happening is not sufficient. We have all the wherewithal, but the larger bodies where there is funding, they have to increase their pace. You all agree for that.
Anyway, now you all know, under the...
No, we can't say that we are going slowly. There is no time now.
Yeah. Under the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, the Department of Fisheries has, included many things which were not there before. And through NFDB, these things are being introduced. Yeah, slowly. Anyway, things are improving. Thank you.
Yes, Ravi Shankar, this is an important issue, but this is an issue of an investment rather than research and development. So, yes, technologies are available. Even within our own Fish for All Research Center, we have all these solar dryers. We have looked at even inland fishes. Yes. So, this is more of an investment issue, and it is a different line altogether. Thank you very much for raising this important this thing. No. Give the mic to him so that he can raise the question. Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
Sir, why we need to go for the homogeneity crab, sir, actually? We have changed our lifestyle, and then we are in the rat race, and then mass production, due to mass production. Hello? How do you hear me, sir?
Yeah, we are able to hear you.
Yes, sir, actually. Why we need to go for homogeneity crab, sir? We only, changed our lifestyle, and then mass production, and then uncontrollable consumerist attitude. All this, we spoiled the environment. Hello? And then we lost that, nutritional deficiency.
To whom you are making this question?
My question to Dr. Jairam, sir.
Jayaraman is not a speaker. He is a Tangraj. I think it is for you, Dr. Tangraj. Can you repeat the question so that he can take it?
That is rhizosphere. 5,000 tons of nitrogen is there. Professor's book I have studied, Anwar Dil. In the rhizosphere lecture, I want to tell something more. In last month, July, floods, lot of chemical waste is there. It is pollution to aquaculture also. The rise, my question of point is, nitrogen fixation per hectare is number of 1,000 tons, 5,000 tons. See, natural farming is now reduce this chemical drudgery. And madam is doing this work in mountain ranges, they will help me. That's why coffee aroma is also excellent because of naturality. Good luck to all.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sir, you can raise the question and we can, give the mic here.
Thank you. My question begins to Dr. Sadrock. Now, in terms of knowledge ecosystem, that you have different dimensions you have presented, but also the challenge of a new ecology of knowledge. For example, the knowledge itself, whatever in mountain, coastal, it is not free from a dominant and a domineering Euro-American epistemology. Even the vision and practice of traditional knowledge and indigenous knowledge is not free from this domination of Euro-American epistemology. So my query is, how do we develop a new ecology of knowledge where different knowledge ecologies are brought into respectful communication? And my second query to Dr. Siddiqui is, out of many important issues you have raised, you have also raised a cultural and political question. For example, the disjunction between the mountain people and the valley people. In terms of moving ahead, what kind of cultures of dialogues can be initiated, both politically and morally, between these cultures, so that we can move forward as part of the contemporary planetary vulnerability?
Yeah, Dr. Sadrak.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I think it's a very important question that you have posed. Some time ago, the government of India, through the National Informatics Center, initiated something called the local information systems. They even called it e-Panchayat database, on the premise that they would include information of the people, by the people, and for the people. that kind of a concept that they brought in the entire portal system. But unfortunately, this did not take off that well because it required a lot of capacity at the local level to basically collate information that's needed for their own consumption and their own use, but also the ability to capture knowledge of the local conditions, cultures, practices, and so on. But the difference is not just in the design of a system or the taxonomy used out there, but also in building the capacity of people to exploit and utilize. And through the Commonwealth of Learning, we have in the recent days seen the possibility of using very traditional means of communicating with local communities through audio techniques and tools so that their capacity can be built. MSSRF, when they initiated the Village Knowledge Center concept, the first component of the center was to have a local knowledge base, to develop the entitlement database, knowledge database of the local people, cultures, and systems, and the practices, but also ensure that scientific knowledge, vetted and verified knowledge could be, information could be brought in, translated, and contextualized for the local communities and made available. That's where they used initially the blackboard, then the radio, and various other techniques. And the OKN example that I mentioned at MSSRF was mainly to see how from one community we can respectfully share knowledge, and also commodify that content as an authentic source of information that emanates from one community, which the other community can respect. But, and they also looked at through the Harvard Business School, the intellectual property rights of the knowledge that's being communicated and how one could incentivize knowledge sharing and also making it as a good business proposition. This had taken off very well, but unfortunately, when it comes to the larger knowledge ecosystems of this kind, we need global institutions backup and funding. Other than the International Development Research Center, IDRC, and the Canadian International Development Agency, and the Swiss Development Corporation, which put in a small corpus money, we could not attract large funds. But now with all these recognitions of mountainous systems and coastal systems and so on, I think there is time for us to revisit this need for the land-to-land component of people-to-people sharing of knowledge and information is something to be revisited. Thank you for flagging it.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sadrak. I hope we had a very wonderful, lectures, as well as the interaction levels are also very high. And with this, I thank each one of you who, right from Dr. Ravi Shankar, Dr. Tangaraj, Professor Siddiq, Dr. Sadrak, and Dr. Prabhavati for their wonderful contributions, and also the audience for their vivid interaction. Thank you very much. With this, we close this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and because of the offline participation, Dr. Ravi Shankar is receiving the millet bag as a token of our affection, and our gratitude to all those who joined us online. Yes, thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
With this, we close the session. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
before I leave, I hand over the mic to my colleague Sangeeta, who will make the announcements.
Yeah. So we have some housekeeping announcements. Dinner will be available from 7 p.m. at the place behind here near the GRD Center, in the place behind here, the next building outside. And after that, those who require transport to go back to their hotels, the vehicles are also available. You may contact the transport desk. And tomorrow morning, we begin the first session at 10 a.m. and there are also vehicles to bring you to this venue. So kindly plan with your transport desk and accordingly make yourselves available. So tomorrow morning we will be here by 10. And we break now. You have a bit of a time. Maybe you can spend some time looking at the exhibition and visiting the different stalls. And then around